All right. So I just went and confirmed it. I am supposed to just sort of jam it in. It's essentially what I'm supposed to do. And they believe I'm not supposed to leave any gaps. So that couple mils that I was just talking to you all about is a big deal. And I asked them what I'm supposed to do, and they said, apply pressure. So I'm going to very carefully apply a bit of pressure, which actually worked. That just felt wrong putting that much force on it. To be honest, it wasn't actually that much. Oh, I can still see a slight gap in there, just a slight one. So, there we go. All right. Now, before this actually goes in, there's one more part I actually have to remove. So let's just sit this one down here. Now, on the back here, there's this little bracket here. Now, this comes off. And on the, I'll show you in a sec. 1 and 2. I'm just going to sit them through that. Sit that off to the side. So I'll sit that off to the side there, nice and easy. And what I'm going to do is turn that back around, because in case you haven't, there's this little notch on the side of the power board. So that actually comes through here. Then I mount that back on to hold it in place. So let's do that part of it. Let's turn this back around. Let's get this PSU in. Now, apparently, I have done this somewhat the difficult way, and I 100% should have put the power supply in first with this case, which seems a little strange to me, but it's only because I've never done it that way. So I'm going to grab these pads so I can lay the case down while I get this graphics card in. I believe it'll give you a lot more vision to see what we're doing. At least I think so. So I'm actually going to disconnect that riser cable quickly. That gives, and there, just so that ARGB for the motherboard, and that is for let's line that up. I think that'll be a bit easier for me to work on. I hope it's a bit easier for you to see. Alrighty, so with that out of the way, the GPU goes in, and then with this bracket here, which I actually mount to the GPU, which again, something I should have done already. But let's get this on nice and quickly. The graphics card, the power supply will go in that way, which means the mounts need to go on the bottom there. So I'm going to sit this, it's going to be the best thing. Oh, let's just bring over just a box for now. I'll sit that up here. And my box now just close, just so I can sit that down nicely. Because as we just were talking about, the bracket's going to go in here. Now, the screws that are necessary to put this bracket into the GPU, into the power supply, wasn't included, or I do not know where they are, either way. So that actually, I'm going to mount it in there, and that goes in through the bottom of the case, and it's actually what holds the power supply in place. So these screws I've had to grab are my own, just some that I had sitting around, but they fit perfectly. So let's use it. And that's straight. No, I'll put the screw in a little bit of an angle. Or a lot of an angle, apparently. That's the hole. Okay, this shouldn't be difficult. I'm just trying to do it on a bit of an angle, trying to show you. Which isn't really making it any easier for me. There we go. Alright. Let's move that back over. Now let's get this baby in. Ooh. I actually have to remove these. So these, as mentioned, are the bolts that hold it into the bottom. And they're nuts and bolts. So I'll just pull them off over here on my hand. Ooh. There we go. That way when the nut falls out, I can catch it. Or at least control where it's going to fall. So this case has been a bit of an interesting one to work with. I love how it's going to come out. I love these cases. They look really good. However, I'm not sure I would want to overly build in them again. Personally, if it was for my computer myself, where I'm only having to build it once and then I get to look at my pretty creation, I would agree. Probably worth it. As someone who sits there and has to build computers repetitively, I think I would get very sick of that very quickly. All right, so move the riser cable, get this GPU in. Of course, as I said, I did it the wrong way, so I've got to get it in nicely. What did I snag it on? Nothing. It sits off the back a couple mil. That's a funny one. Yeah, just so that... Alright, so we're going to set that there. Just so that it's not the power board. Jesus, that's not a hard word to remember. Just so that the power board... Where's the hole? Move my chair back so I can actually see where I'm looking. There we go. Ooh. Excuse the chair. It was the chair, not me. Alright. I'm going to put that one in too tight till I get the second one lined up. Which, of course, is going to play a trick on me. Yep, the nut fell out. Oh, fun. So once again, move all this out of the way. Let's get this back out. Nice and carefully. And grab that one little nut that fell down there. There it is. And I can put it back in where it belongs. Which is interesting because I've just dropped it again. This bracket may be upside down. I doubt it. It's sat flush that way. It didn't the other way. Alright, I'm going to sit that over and find that nut. Alright. do this again for what I am hoping is going to be the last time. If that nut is staying in, the other one just fell straight out. Let's do that one last time. In, fall straight out. Yep, la-di-da. So let's just remove this one more time, turn it around, and hope that that's the issue it had. I don't believe it is, but I guess you never know, right? Yep. Put that one back on. Alright, so whoever's sat there and what? There we go. So whoever's been sitting there watching me do this and watching all the mistakes I've made, kind of want to apologize. But thanks for sticking around. A lot of backtracking. But this is good at showing you that if you're going to use this case, the little hiccups that anyone would come across probably should have taken the time to read their manual. But I like to learn while we're going, hey? What do you think? Alright, so of course, it's now not going to go in as nicely as it did last time. Let's get this here. There we go. That wasn't so difficult, case. Alright. Now, secondly, I do need to make sure that with that, before I screw it in, the rad still fits. Personally, I probably... Oh, look at that. That actually looks very nice in there. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to have the fans on the front or the back. We'll figure out what looks more... oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. We'll find out what looks prettier. Let's go with that. Because that's a very manly word to have used. But I've got all the clearances I need from this radiator. I did go one... So we went with the Corsair, the XR5 range, because they're not as wide. Which I'm very much so glad we did. Because honestly, I don't have much room anywhere. So I'm very, very, very glad I did. Alrighty. Now, pick this up. Move this very carefully. Ooh, almost. And let's get these screws in. There. And once again, make sure it lines up. And that's the other one. Oh! Alright. There's one. Now I need to get my little fingers in there into a very specific... There we go. Now the nut's in. I can hold it. Hallelujah. Alright, so that... The bottom of that finally mounted. Now, I've had a lot of hiccups along the way, which is always fun, to say the very least. No, honestly, they did well on making that fit in very perfectly, actually. Everything is so snug. The RAM's not compromised, so you could have gone See, I didn't go a massive set like the Dominators or anything. I specifically went with the... Which one did I go with? You know what? I got the box here. That's right. It's another Corsair product because they always do as well. I went with the Vengeance. So we'll get the pretty lights on it and whatnot. And yeah. All right. So I got the riser cable back in. And there's nothing else I should have to put in there that's going to be in the way. Finally. I believe I have reached my limit on hiccups here. I just want this to fit. So that is in perfectly. Now that that's in, this bracket here that it comes with, you actually mount that in there to cover the gap. But there's a cable there. There's a hole that you run through. So you actually run the cable first. And then you put this back on and screw it in. Now I'm going to do that after we're done with everything, so that it's not in the way, obviously. I'm not sitting there with a power cable sitting here. Because the power cable, once it's in, it's not going to fit out. It's really nice though. It covers a little gap, because with GPU sitting back like this, there's a gap of 2 inches, 6 centimeters even. Yeah. Now that we've got that in, we've got the power board in, we're going to pick this up, we're going to turn it around. I'm going to get that back bracket that holds the power board in place, which is why I'm going to semi-loosen this, not a lot, just in case, because it comes with a couple little grooves. Just in case the power board doesn't fully line up, I can move this, slide it to where it needs to be, then screw it all back down after. So let's pick this one up, and I'll turn it around, make it so you can see what I'm working with. It's this here, which was that little bracket that I pulled off this one, because this will need to go back on around that, which, it's actually got a very specific way. There we go. And of course that was too easy. Pull that back out. So, doesn't line up that way. There we go. It does line up that way. Like that. Look at that. And then that holds it in to exactly where it needs to be. There we go. And what this will do is keep the power board perfectly straight, so there's no pressure on it either. So you're not going to have to worry about doing damage to your PCB by bending it or putting pressure against it. This holds it in very nicely. And once we got that one in, I can lay it back down and do the final couple touches to the power supply. All right. Lay that back down. And that's where I've got this one. Just going to tighten this up. Now that it's all in place. And I'm going to go nice tight, but not going to leave dents in the acrylic, sort of, because you don't want to do that. All right, now we shouldn't need that screwdriver again, because everything here has been difficult with, well, Allen keys. All right. Love the look of these fittings. They're quite nice. They look almost exactly the same as the ones that Corsair make. I can't remember the range they're called, but they're a lovely product. Like, they look nice, they last, they don't age badly or anything like that. So now that we've got all this in, that rad's going to get in. And now I know we've got a top rad to put in, but we're going to actually wait on that one and put that one in probably last, just so that I can run all the cabling I need to for the power board to run into the 8-pin. There's the 24-pin down there. Oh, is that really it? No. I'll have to run the pump power cable and I'll have to run the fan cables for the radiator fans. Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, so let's get this in and going. Radiator. Now, I've already put this in once. Yep. Again, we're going to be extremely careful. Almost snagging on. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to pick this up very carefully so we can screw it in the back with the new screws that I had to go to Bunnings, I believe it was. Hardware store. Bunnings, yeah. Let's turn this around. And so that'll sit just up slightly off the bottom, because obviously that's better. And we're going to start putting in some screws. Now, as I mentioned, there are M4s, which are both the head and the thickness. Then we got 10s, 15s, and 16s. Because I wasn't exactly sure which size we'll need. Now I'm going to start with the shortest one at the 10. Because, well, I guess you never know. Oh, I bumped the camera. My apologies. Whoever's head just went spinning. Alright, so I'll grab that radiator. Very carefully lift it up. Oh, look at that. That's so good having the right screw. So I was right. It's these ones here, which is the 10mm, which have a thread pitch of, is it 0.7mm? It should be whether or not the same or almost the same as what's in here. Like as in the radiator. Alright, I just got to keep holding that and I'll get this bottom one in. Then we can start to go through with the rest of them. And I don't have to hold it anymore. Alright, now I'm just going to pop my head around and make sure that radiator's in a good spot. I've left, probably need another, probably 2 mils on the bottom, just because I plan on trying to run the cables, at least as many of the cables down the bottom. I know with the power board, the cables are a little different the way they plug in. But that's okay. Gonna release the radiator. Just a little cable that's kind of in the way. And as I said, I'm going to run some of the cables down there, so I want to make as much room as possible. Now that's not connected. Yep, perfect. And I can run my hand in here, because that will go into the PCB, into the power board down the bottom. That is still snagged because it's in a terrible spot. Let's see what I can do about that. Turn it. There we go. Oh, hallelujah. Because that cable actually goes into the bottom of the PCB and then into the case. Because this case had, as we mentioned, it's got a touchscreen button on the front. So I'm going to actually sit that cable in a very safe position, because if we built this computer and then didn't have a power button cable, well, I can see a lot of people getting mad, especially at me. All right. You know what? Before I actually do mount that, I'm going to have to plug that little cable into the power board down there, because I don't think I'm going to have the room to fit my fingers in after. So I'll turn this back around. go. Get that one back out of there. Once again, we do very carefully. Yeah, so in the bottom there, PCB's down the bottom. I keep saying PCB, it's the power board that they've sent. So I'm not technically wrong, but let's call it what they do. All right. Now this cable goes that way. And I'm very much so glad I'm doing that now, because if I had plugged in the radiator and plugged in everything else and then had to undo this, undo it all, drain the plugs, everything, to have to plug in the power cable, I would have been very upset. Now, it's going to be a bit difficult for me to show you. So in the front of the panel here, down the bottom in this shape, there is a couple little little points. One of which is for that. The second one is not a port, it's a little light. So I'm going to actually have to pull that chair out again and get another, oh no, not a squeak, to make sure that I line this up correct, because again, I'm not pulling that radiator. I would rather not pull that radiator out. Interesting. There it is. I can't see. It's so small. So small. And my hands are bigger than it. So sort of got to line it up to the best of my ability with my fingertips. There we go. Nope. I lined it up. I got it in the groove, but it didn't take. Alright. I'm going to have to just take a second to do this, which means I'm going to turn it to where I'm going to be able to see, but you guys probably can't, unfortunately. So, make sure I got it lined up correctly. And of course, there we go. So my hand doesn't fit, but it does, sort of. Be nice if the plug was lined up the right way. I really can't fit my hand in there. That's no good. But I should be able to see from this side if I come in from the other side. Oh yeah, that is much better. And look at that. The second I can actually see what I'm doing, it works. Now that little cable there, I'm gonna excuse me. That little cable will sit under the radiator, so it won't be visible. It won't make any messes or anything like that. All right, so once again, let's get the radiator in. Nope, there's a little cable up there. I'm going to snip it now. Just the cable tie on it. I'll snip that now so that when it comes to it, I've got a bit of length to work with it. If need be, of course, I can always tie it back up. Just one of these cables here, which will plug into our ARGB and PWM hub. So now that cable's released, I'll set that one out of the actually, it's not really going to be in the way if it's sitting there. And for what feels like an eternity, let's lay this computer, not lay it down because I need to get the screws in the back. All right, let's get that in. Make sure the cables are out of the way. Ta-da! That's it. Now, turn this around. And we'll get those M4 10mm screws in, which when/if you see this singularity, keep that in mind. Beautiful case. Very, very beautiful case, let's be honest. You have done exceptional work making sure that everything lines up. However, that screw not being included makes things very difficult. Alrighty, Roo. So, I'll say it again. Radiator's in. I'll grab the rest of the screws and get them in now. That way we don't have to worry about the radiator later. Now it holds 8 screws. And I plan on using all 8 because this whole computer, as you all know, we're going to have to ship it to one of you lucky guys. And we want to make sure everything's secure. Now, personally, my computer has a 2080 in it, like millimeter rad, not a 240. And I've only got 4 screws. In fact, I think I've even only got 3 screws in it. I dropped one when I was building it, or putting that AO in, and I just was like, meh. Close enough. And what do you know? It was. What's going on? Okay, that fits, that fit, that fit. That screwdriver fits in all of them. Another one that came out of the same packet, screwdriver doesn't fit. Let's grab another one of these out and let's see if that's fits perfectly. Okay. Same. Okay. So you're going to see this with some, especially on mass-produced ones. The inside, which is supposed to go relatively deep to fit this, is quite shallow and it's got burrs in it. All right, I'll just get that out of the way and we'll work with the rest of them. And if it turns out I come up 1 screw short, I'll get a different screwdriver and make that one fit. You know what? I think 8's going to be overkill. The manufacturer, the booklet says 4. I'm going to do the 6, so it's stable in the center, but 8's not going to do any good. There we go. You know what? Oh yeah, the computer moves before it does, as it should. Alright. Well, the packs I had bought them nuts and bolts. Bolts and nuts, it says really, but obviously I don't need the nuts for these. I just needed flat end screws, which is obviously bolts. Because otherwise I would have had to grab the angle grinder out, which I did consider getting the angle grinder and just shaving the tip off some of the sharp screws I had, but on such a nice computer where everything is so beautiful, it seemed wrong to do something that, well, my favorite word to say when it comes to that sort of stuff is janky. That is a very janky way to handle things. Alrighty. So the next step, now that we've got all that in, got the I don't know if you can see that. Let's turn that a little bit there. Got the radiator, got the power supply. Obviously, we had the motherboard, which had the CPU and the water block on it. Got these all pretty fittings, just see if they fit perfectly, which, hey, got the RAM in. Oh, maybe that'll be a little easier for you to see, actually. So we got the RAM in. Honestly, the next step is start to put some cables in, because we're going to have to fill these. Oh, actually, here's something I may not have already mentioned with you. use. That's such a terrible non-word. Something I've not mentioned with you guys is at the top of the power board here, there's a little switch. Now you'll see that it does have an on and off like sign, so you can see it. Labeled, I guess, on such a small thing. And the point of that is instead of having to turn your computer on, which is the standard way for running cooling to your computer, like when you're flushing the water through it to get it full and bubbles out, no air, all that sort of stuff. The way you used to have to do it was to plug in the power supply and then plug in those components only, the water pump, I mean, and then you'd have to sort of wiggle the computer. This way, you can plug it all up, have the power supply on, and then you just flip this switch, and all it does is it allows power straight to the pump. And the beauty of allowing water straight to the power straight to the pump, obvious reasons, is it'll pump the water straight through the loop. You'll see it when we get to do it. It's very cool. And you know what? I actually like how that is. I kind of was thinking I should have put the rad a little higher, but now I'm looking at it now and go, that seems like a really good height. With the cable on the bottom out of the way, I'm going to need a bit of room to put some fittings and whatnot in there. But outside of that, we're looking pretty darn good.